Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Tonight we have ourselves a jam-packed show for you all, as a lot of amazing events happened this past week, such as, let's start with the big one. The Rams are Super Bowl champions, baby! I can't believe it, the Rams actually pulled it off. Whose house? Rams house, baby. I am very impressed, and I have a special guest that will be discussing the Rams' Super Bowl win. And how about USC toppling UCLA in men's basketball without Isaiah Mobley? Are the Trojans for real? We'll see. We'll see. And then the Lakers kind of hit a little bit of a rough patch, but they were victorious against the Utah Jazz, but they lost Anthony Davis. This is not looking too good for the Lakers, but they are at the All-Star break, so they get a little bit of a breather. And the Anaheim Ducks are struggling, which is no point. So there's that, all that, here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for tuning in on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I hope you all are having a great day. I hope you all are staying safe. I hope everything is going well for you all. And without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California sports action, as we have a lot to get into, such as, once again, the Rams surprisingly won the Super Bowl. And here with me to help discuss the Rams winning the Super Bowl is my guest. My guest is, by popular demand, back and better than ever, as this man is not a diehard Rams fan, but a big Rams fan in general, as he loves the Rams, and he was ecstatic to see the Rams getting the victory and basically winning their first Super Bowl in Los Angeles. And he's a diehard Southern California sports fan in general. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming back my brother from the same mother, Teran Rodriguez.
Hey, Teran.
Hey, Justin. There you are. All right. So, welcome back.
I was waiting for you to let me in. I was like, do I even get a hi from my own brother?
Yeah, I just gave you your introduction.
You gave me an introduction, but I was expecting like a hi, how are you, or something like that.
Well, I just said, I just emphatically said your name, and then you're back on. But regardless, you are here, and we are hoping, we are happy to have you back. It's been a while since you've been on the last show. I think the last time you were on was not last year, but the end of 2020. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it was when we did the 2020 wrap-up show, right?
Yep. I remember that. Yeah, that was the 2-hour special.
Well, you jogged my memory. Like, yeah, I thought maybe I hadn't been on since when the Lakers won the title last. And I know I got a lot on the Lakers. I got a lot on the Lakers, later on in the program. But this week's all about the Rams.
Yes.
As we all know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we will be discussing some Lakers as well, as the chat room is popping like popcorn at the movies, as we have Adam.
Is that right?
Yes, Adam Karnick is in the chat room. He's the host of our Chicago sports show on iSports Radio. He says the man of the hour, good evening. And Andrew Hagenbaugh, the host of our Ohio sports show, which obviously he talked about the Bengals side.
We're all over the map, literally. I mean, including myself. The reason why I haven't been on, and the reason why I haven't really been able to listen to you, in a while, is because I'm no longer in Southern California. I live in Dallas now.
Yeah, and it's totally understandable, man. So it's all good.
But I mean, it's only 7:00, and it's a Friday evening. So this couldn't have worked out better.
Absolutely. It worked out for the both of us, as Andrew Hagenbaugh talked about the Bengals side of things on his Ohio sports show, the State of Ohio Sports. Pierre Moss is in the chat room. He says, let's get it, Teran. And also John Felipe, the host of our Carolina sports show, who just followed us from the schedule from today. He was just on here. He hosts the Carolina sports show, the Carolina Cast, which talks about the Panthers and the Charlotte Hornets and whatnot. So he says, let's get it, Teran, and he says, not the sibling rivalry. So, all right. Yep.
Yeah. First of all, real quick, I'm watching. I've got the All-Star Celebrity Game. Is that Ohio sports guy going to talk about All-Star Weekend?
Yeah, I imagine he talked about the All-Star Weekend, and I didn't catch his show, but I imagine
it is a busy week for him, nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he actually has a little theme to his show. The title of his show is Ohio versus blank, and basically the title of this week's show was Ohio versus the All-Star break, or the All-Star game. Regardless, it's an impressive theme that he continues to have week in and week out whenever he does that show. So hats off to him. All right, but let's jump on into the Super Bowl, as the Rams managed to pull off a crazy win over the Cincinnati Bengals at SoFi Stadium, which unfortunately the Rams were not the designated home team, but they were at home regardless, since they didn't have to, since SoFi was in Southern California. So, Justin, how did you feel about the game, and how many emotions were there, and what can you say about that game?
Before I answer your question, I want to correct you a little bit. I'm not actually a diehard football fan, but I did adopt the Rams just after they came back to LA in 2016, and I think the main reason for that is for those that are listening and don't know, Teran and I actually met two Rams legends the very year the Rams came back to LA. That being legendary quarterback Vince Ferragamo, who led the Rams to the Super Bowl back in 1979. The game was actually played in the Rose Bowl back then. So this wasn't the first time the Rams. It was the first time the Rams hosted a Super Bowl, but they weren't the host back in '79. But it was in LA. They lost to Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers that year. Close game, no shame in that. And also Eric Dickerson, Mr. LA Ram. I bet he's been partying like a rock star the last week. He's always held it down for the Rams, or at the very least while they've been in LA. And and they're such nice guys. They signed my they signed my fan, and we took pictures with them, and our mom was there too. She's listening right now. Our mom Janine, shout out to her, they were just such great guys, and really that more than anything has really made me want to adopt the Rams. And I've been listening to Mason Ireland for over a decade now. Mason's always been a Rams fan, so I really live vicariously through them. And then when they went to the Super Bowl the first time with Jared Goff, that's when I really became a fan. So ever since then, I've been wanting the Rams to really bring a Super Bowl home to LA. So to answer your question, yes, I was on pins and needles the entire game because in the Super Bowl anything can happen. I mean, it's a one and done game, and the Rams, being the host team, only the second time in history that an NFL team has actually hosted a Super Bowl. The Bucks did it last year, but being in LA. I wasn't sure how they were going to respond. It's Tinseltown, it's Hollywood. There's so many distractions and pre-parties leading up to it. I wasn't sure how focused and dialed in, this Rams team was going to be. You knew Aaron Donald was going to, because he's been waiting. He's played. How long has he played with the Rams? Do you know, Teran?
8 seasons.
Eight seasons. And he's been, without question, the best defensive tackle of his generation. He really wanted to get this ring, and he really wanted to beat those darn Niners. Which, again, that's another reason why I really was rooting hard for the Rams, because Rams fans hate the Niners. They've hated the Niners, going back to the '80s in the Joe Montana era, and him breaking their hearts and losing 6 times in a row to the Rams just really made me sick to my stomach. So finally getting past them and finally getting that Super Bowl win, it was just such vindication for all the LA Rams fans. But again, anything could have happened. I mean, Joe Burrow is no joke. He's a good quarterback, but but thankfully the defense held on, and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, after struggling so much in the second half, it's like they couldn't even buy a first down. I wasn't even sure they were going to win, but when Stafford finally reached Cooper Kupp, I knew they were going to pull it off, and I was just so happy and so elated, and and we were to steal a line from Prince, we were really partying like it was 1999. When the only other time the Rams won the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, indeed.
But it's the first in LA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you talked about the Niners. I really think that losing to the Niners in Week 18 was kind of the turning point. I think that kind of opened the eyes of the Rams, just because they were winning in that game, as we welcome Davidson Crooks into the chat room, the host of Fast Break on IE Sports Radio. But back to the Rams and the Niners in Week 18, I think that was the turning point of the season, just because the Rams
I agree.
Yeah, they were up 17-0, 17-0, and then eventually up 17-3, and then unfortunately the game just slipped through their fingers, and it was kind of a damaging loss, just because, well, obviously you were up 17, and you were basically dominating in all facets of the game, and then you just collapsed in the final quarter as you basically gave up big chunk plays, and you left the receiver wide open for the go-ahead touchdown, and then Stafford, unfortunately, undid the Rams in overtime, unfortunately. So, and I pretty much try to tell everyone this, that it's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. You look at what happened with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints beat them both times last year, and then what happened in the divisional round, Tom Brady had the last laugh. So, to me, I think I was not anywhere worried. And I just could not believe that Niners fans were saying that the Rams' wins over the Bucs without Brady's top receivers and the Cardinals were not as impressive as the Niners beating the Cowboys and the Packers. That really just did not sit well to me. It's like, come on. A playoff win is a playoff win.
But they're Niners fans, Teran.
That's
Again,
true.
this is a heated rivalry. It's the football equivalent to the Dodgers and the Giants. You can't expect Niners or Rams fans, on social media to be rational. They're going to feel the way they feel against their hated rivals.
That's true. And John Felipe says Eli Apple didn't have the last laugh. And that's something I definitely need to bring up because Eli Apple, he was the one that gave up the touchdown to Cooper Kupp. And I don't know why the Bengals decided to put Eli Apple on Cooper Kupp, the best wide receiver in the league, arguably, when they probably should have put, Chidobe Awuzie on him. But I digress on that. So, for the game itself, there were a lot of emotional roller coasters. I think the biggest one was Odell Beckham Jr. having a big game and then getting hurt in the second quarter, late in the second quarter, and it was just heartbreaking because he was having such a big game, and his replacement, Ben Skoranek, no offense to him, but he just wasn't as effective as Beckham. And I think this was kind of Odell Beckham Jr.'s big breakout game, and unfortunately he got hurt near the end of the second quarter, and I think it basically sucked the energy out of the Rams, and they had to rediscover that energy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that really changed a lot. That's really what when Odell Beckham went down, that's when I really got nervous. And I'm like, that's not good. And you saw how it affected Matthew Stafford, and his offense and the Rams offense in general. When Odell Beckham went down, the Bengals defense could focus on Cooper Kupp a lot more, and he didn't have, and Stafford didn't have a lot of options. So I felt really bad for Beckham. I mean, even Chris Collinsworth said toward the end of the game in the fourth quarter, like, this has got to be killing Odell Beckham because after a bit, he didn't have an abysmal career, but like Stafford in Detroit, he was on a lot of those New York Giants teams that were just terrible, and you finally get to the biggest stage and you go down due to injury on such a freak accident, a non-contact play, and yeah, I was really feeling sick for Beckham, and again, I'm just glad that the Rams were able to pull it off, and you saw how emotional he got after the clock hit zero, and same with Aaron Donald, and again, I'm just so happy for those guys.
Yeah, and same here. And honestly, I feel that it was a miracle that the Rams were able to rediscover that same energy that they had early on when Odell Beckham Jr. was in the game. I also should mention that Odell Beckham Jr. was on the Browns, and then he got hurt last year, which forced him to miss that playoff run where the Browns nearly beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And then this year, and then this year, Odell Beckham Jr. had a little I wouldn't call it like beef with Baker Mayfield, but he just wasn't on the same connection with him. And it eventually led to OBJ getting released and the Rams signing him. And I really got to laugh at everyone who said Odell Beckham Jr. was not going to fit well with the Rams. Well, joke's on you. Because
oh yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah, I mean, it took a little while. I mean, even after the Rams got Odell Beckham and Von Miller, the Rams still struggled. There was a lull where they lost 3 in a row or something like that, and I wasn't even sure they were. I mean, I knew they were going to make the playoffs, but I wasn't even sure if they were going to get out of the wild card. I thought maybe they'd be like a 10-7, 11-6 team, and maybe they get to the divisional and lose. But they found a way to make it work, and give Sean McVay a lot of credit. He really turned it around, and also again, as far as going back to the Super Bowl, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller, that defense. If it hadn't been for all those sacks, on Joe Burrow, I mean, how does it feel to be Joe Burrow? The most sacked quarterback, in the 2021 regular season, and the most sacked quarterback in Super Bowl history, in a single Super Bowl game in Super Bowl history. I mean, the Bengals their offensive line just gives them zero protection. If it hadn't been for the Rams and all those sacks, the Rams wouldn't have even had a shot at winning.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And this is kind of where everyone is saying that the Bengals should have drafted shouldn't have drafted Jamar Chase, and they should have drafted Penei Sewell, but in the end, the Bengals were able to make the most out of their offensive line for the most part that they had, and give the Bengals a lot of credit. Getting to the Super Bowl is really difficult, especially with the path that they had. They obviously scrapped against a impressive Raiders team, and then I feel sick saying that impressive and Raiders in the same sentence. and then despite
especially after the way the Chargers season ended, that was a crazy game.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. But you also
you brought it up.
Yeah, and then you also have to remember that the Bengals edged out the Titans despite Joe Burrow getting sacked 9 times, and then winning at Arrowhead against Kansas City a second time. I
was shocked at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, imagine facing Patrick Mahomes for I wouldn't say the second time, but in the Super Bowl, which that would have been nutso. So for me, I think the Bengals deserve a lot of credit for their season, and I don't think anyone projected them to being a Super Bowl caliber team. And the fact that the Bengals were able to get the early jump on the Rams in the second half speak to high volumes of how talented they are. They obviously scored on the first play of the second half, and then on the Rams' first play of the second half, they came up with the interception, which was not all Stafford's fault. Again, Ben Skoranek is no Odell Beckham Jr. Let's get that out of the way. So, he caught the ball, but he didn't cradle it to the point where he grabbed it with 2 hands, and then it just slipped out of his hands and into the cornerback's hands, which was obviously something Rams fans did not like to see. And I thought at that point it was over, because I said on last week's show that if Stafford turns the ball over 2 or more times, it's pretty much over. But I have never been more proud to be more wrong. So I give the Rams so much credit just because they shut the Bengals out in the fourth quarter. And that was the second time they did that, or the second straight game they did that, considering they shut the Niners out in the fourth quarter in the NFC Championship. Albeit they were down 13 as opposed to being down 4 going into the fourth quarter. So I think for me, the Rams came up big when it mattered most, and the defense deserves so much credit. Like the defense was very impressive, and I was concerned that the defense was going to be too gassed, and fortunately Aaron Donald came up big. And something I will not understand for the love of me is, why did the Bengals not run the ball with Joe Mixon? They were going with this guy named Brian Pirine. I don't know his first name off 100% accurately, but Pirine. They went with Pirine instead of their top running back. And it's like, I don't get it. I was told via Adam Karnick that the Bengals did not want to be obvious and they wanted to disguise their run game, but in that crucial point of the game, you have to go with your top running back who's had a very stellar postseason for the most part. So I think for me, that was the Bengals' biggest mistake, and not getting the first down via 3rd and 1 was kind of what killed them, because everyone thought the Rams defense was not going to be good, but the Rams defense, the Rams run defense, in my opinion, had drastically improved, because the previous game against the Niners, they looked really good. They stopped the run for the most part, and then the previous matchup against the Bucks, they did a better job at that as well. And Adam says that was actually just a theory on his part. So my apologies, Adam. So regardless, I think it's a really good theory, and I still don't understand why the Bengals did not go to Joe Mixon. So either way, the Rams were celebrating, and it was just a great scene. I was just like, wow, the Rams actually came up big, and just like you, Justin, I was so happy for Stafford, because all those years he spent in Detroit being pretty much the laughingstock of, I wouldn't say laughingstock of quarterbacks, but just being in the basement of the NFC North and just whiffing on any playoff chances he got, and all those heartbreaking losses and the revolving carousel of coaches that have been there at the Detroit Lions organization. He finally gets to put on that ring and say, I'm a Super Bowl champion.
The revolving carousel of the Detroit Lions organization. Forget the coaches. I mean, that has been an abysmal organization for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And if the NFL wants to avoid teams not having home Super Bowls, they should just have the Super Bowl in Detroit every season.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible idea, Teran. I don't think anybody wants to play the Super Bowl in Detroit.
Well, yeah, it was obviously a joke. Like, just because the Lions don't really have that it factor of making the Super Bowl.
Well, it's cold as hell in Detroit. Mm-hmm. I know Green Bay hosts it every once in a while, but that's the home of the Super Bowl. That's the home of the Lombardi Trophy. But that's beside the point. I'm glad you brought it. I'm glad you brought up Stafford and his career with the Lions, because I actually do have a question I want to ask you. I'll ask you that was a hot topic in sports news earlier this week. But before I do, I want to go back. I want to go back to something you said earlier about the Rams losing to the Niners that second time in week
18.
Was it 18? Yeah, the last game of the season, right?
Yeah. It's still gonna get.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I agree that was the turning point. But I also think that losing that game was a blessing in disguise for the Rams. Because think about it: if the Rams were to have won. If the Rams were to have held on and beaten the Niners, they would have had to play them again that following week. The Rams would have been the 2 seed, and the Niners would have been the 7 seed. They would have had to play them again at SoFi that following week. And I don't know if the Rams beat them for 2 weeks in a row. That's hard to do. Well,
I think actually the Rams would have played the Eagles.
No, I thought they said that the Rams would have played the Niners because of the way the tiebreaker situation worked out.
Well, if the Niners had lost that one,
the Niners won because of the Niners win. They were able to move up to 6.
Yeah, but if the Niners had lost, then the Saints would have gotten in, and then the Niners wouldn't have even been in the equation to begin with. So
they wouldn't have made the playoffs at all?
No, they wouldn't have, because the Saints and Eagles tied for the same record, but due to head-to-head that the Eagles beat the Saints, Eagles would have gotten in over them. So that Saints fans were obviously rooting for the Rams to win, and unfortunately it did not happen.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
all right. I just heard the announcer saying that the Rams would be playing the Niners, and Mason and Ireland talked about that previous week too. It's like, do we lose on purpose? Do we avoid the Niners in the first round? Anyway, we agree that it was a turning point, and it just motivated the Rams to really get back at it, and we'll work hard and train for the postseason, and beat the Niners where it really counts. In the NFC Championship game, I mean, come on, it's not winning the Super Bowl, but it's the NFC West equivalent to it, and obviously you had to cap it off with the Super Bowl win. So it really was a miracle of a season for the Rams.
Yeah, and I actually need to correct myself on the NFC Championship. The Rams were actually down by 10 and not 13. They scored 13 points in the fourth quarter.
17-7, I think the score was going into the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest fourth quarter comeback in NFC Championship history.
Yep, and unfortunately, it's just another painful loss in the hands of Kyle Shanahan. It's not as equivalent as 28.
And for Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not coming back to the Niners, is he?
Doubt it. I highly doubt it. Like his post-game press conference, he basically just said, "All right, guys, see you around," and or thank you.
Yeah. Like he didn't want to talk.
Well, no. At the end of his press conference, he just said, "All right, guys, thank you, peace out," and that's basically an indicator that he might be out, and Trey Lance might be the new guy in. So we'll see. NFL free agency starts in 26 days, if I'm not mistaken. So
there's a rumor that Tom Brady could come back and go to the Niners, but that's a topic for another day. We don't have time for that tonight. But I do want to ask you about this. So did you hear what Richard Sherman said about Matthew Stafford and whether or not he's a Hall of Famer?
Oh, yeah, I did actually hear about that. And Adam actually brings up something in the chat room, and coming from a Bears fan, he says, the Lions are the best team when it comes to having the most talent and doing absolutely nothing with it. That kind of makes sense. I mean, them and maybe the Chargers and a few other teams are basically good at that.
No, I would put the Jets before the Chargers.
Yeah, them too.
The Jets have had a history of drafting great players, mostly from USC, mind you, and yielding zero results.
Yep, Sam Darnold, Mark Sanchez, the list goes on and on. So I also should mention that in the Super Bowl that the Rams did.
Wasn't Matt Barkley on the Jets too, or
I think mistaken? So. I know he was on the Bills, but I'd have to go back and check on that. But going back to the Super Bowl, the Rams also did not have Tyler Higbee, their starting tight end, as also Kendall Blanton wasn't really able to play as well. So I forget who the Rams tight end one was eventually, just because he was originally their tight end 3, but then he got moved up to tight end 2. And then eventually he basically just got moved up to tight end 1 just because obviously Blanton was hurt, and then Higbee was out, so it was Bryson Hopkins, and he obviously he did well. He had 47 yards, which is actually the third most receiving yards, so it's pretty solid. He came up with some big catches for the Rams, so I think for me he made a bit of an impact. Like, it wasn't like a great impact, but honestly, it was the little plays that stood out. So that was my thing. Mm-hmm. So outside of the game, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to go back to what Richard Sherman said about Matthew Stafford. If you'll indulge me, he let me mute this. I don't want this to play over the air. He was watching Good Morning Football earlier this week, and they talked about whether or not Matthew Stafford should be in the Hall of Fame. Former NFL fullback Michael Robinson said Stafford is absolutely destined to be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, end quote. Sherman, who was Robinson's teammate for several seasons on the Seahawks, I didn't even know that until I read this New York Post article, vigorously disagreed. He tweeted, and I quote, "I'm going to talk about it on the podcast, but the Hall of Fame bar is incredibly low now, like a participation trophy. No all-decade team, no all-pro, no MVP, one Pro Bowl. Not even MVP of the Super Bowl. Never considered the best in any year he played. At least Matt Ryan has an MVP," and tweet. And this got into a heated nationwide debate. Everybody who was anybody talked about it and weighed in. Skip Bayless, agreed with Sherman. Rich Eisen disagreed with Sherman, and Stephen A. Smith agreed with seemed to agree with Richard Sherman's preface, but he disagreed because of what Richard Sherman said in that tweet. The Hall of Fame bar has been lowered. So based on how they let players in these days and how the rules have changed, Matthew Stafford should be in the Hall of Fame. By the way, Mason in Ireland disagreed too. Matt Mason, of course, being the hardcore Rams fan, says Matthew Stafford should be in. Ireland agreed with Sherman, but as of right now, not yet. But he still has time to make his case. I think Richard Sherman does have a point to some degree. But what do you think? What do you think about what Richard Sherman said? And is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer as of right now?
Well, for me, I'm on the fence with this one as well. I partially agree with Richard Sherman. He does make a very valid point, but the fact that Stafford was able to have, I want to say, the third most passing yards at the end of the regular season, and the fact that in his first year he was able to not only take the Rams to the Super Bowl, but win the Super Bowl in his first year. And it just went to show you that Stafford was not the problem. The Lions were. And all Stafford needed was a change of scenery. And obviously the Rams went all in this year. They went all in to try to basically have this super team, and it paid off. Now, had it not paid off, we wouldn't be discussing this. But honestly, I feel that if Matt Stafford gets another ring, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. And honestly, he has that it factor. And all he just needed was to be freed from the shackles that was the Detroit Lions. And
he needed a team.
Yes.
He needed a full team. All he all he had in Detroit was Megatron and nothing else. Like no defense to back him up whatsoever. Excuse me, Mason Ireland agreed with that last point too. If he gets another Super Bowl ring, then he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. Before I get into that, I want to check you on something you said. You said Matthew Stafford had the third most passing yards. Are you talking about of this season, or are you talking about of all time?
Of this season. Sorry.
Okay. See now. I mean, you don't get into the Hall of Fame based on one season.
Yeah.
You got to look at every player's body of work. If you look at the all-time leaderboard in passing yards, Matthew Stafford is 12th on the list. Just past Warren Moon, and he's about 1,500 yards behind John Elway for 11th. And then you get to Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning, Matt Ryan, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Tom Brady, and so forth. That's pretty good company to be in. Once you pass John Elway, or even if you hit John Elway, it's still good company. So I mean, but is that enough of a case for the Hall of Fame? You say no.
I feel,
even with the Super Bowl,
I feel depending on what he does with the remainder of his career, he should get in. Like, I feel he's made a case, and when his time comes to call it a career, I think we could look back at this with everyone saying this wasn't going to work, Stafford's going to struggle, and I do admit that Stafford did have the most interceptions thrown, I want to say, in the regular season, and to me, I think that was just a testament of Stafford obviously struggling, but his team just being there to pick him up. And keep in mind, he obviously had to win the Super Bowl without one of his top receivers. And remember, Robert Woods was out because he tore his ACL in practice, and then Higbee was out from the previous game, and then he didn't have...
Yeah, give him credit. He managed to adjust even through adversity. I mean, yeah, but the Hall of Fame, just like the Baseball Hall of Fame, really is about stats. The Rams in me, my heart says, yes, he has made a case, but if you look at it from a stats standpoint, I think he needs at least another Super Bowl, if not an MVP, in order to make his case. Let me ask you this: Mason and Ireland also kicked this around. Should Phillip Rivers be in the Hall of Fame, even though he's never even been to a Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, if Dan Marino can get into the Hall of Fame, I think Rivers can as well. I think Rivers is a Hall of Famer. I could already tell you that he is debated.
He has more passing yards than Dan Marino. Phillip Rivers he's sixth all time. With 63,440 ahead of Dan Marino, who had 61,361. And he has, and he's never been an MVP, but he has been to 6 Pro Bowls.
Yes, and I think he threw fewer interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, to answer your question, I think Rivers is a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but to me, I think he's eventually going to get in, and I think he was one of the best to ever play the game. Unfortunately, the Chargers just could not give him that offensive line that he needed, and it's sad because I think he could have done great things for the Chargers, and I feel Phillip Rivers deserved a Matt Stafford type of ending. Instead, he got this ending with being one and done in the postseason, losing to a talented Bills team. So for me, I think Rivers is a Hall of Famer, but he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's an eventual Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah. Well, and let's be honest. I mean, to make 6 Pro Bowls, being in the same era as Tom Brady and Peyton Manning is pretty good. I mean, he never even had a chance to be the best quarterback in the NFL, in his era.
Yeah, and it's saddening that he just couldn't get over the hump that was Tom Brady, and he never beat.
Played in the same conference as Brady and Manning. Uh-huh. The road went through one of the two to the Super Bowl, and you could say that the Chargers, weren't able to give him enough offense, but at the same time, I mean, you're going up against, two of the greatest of all time. I mean, that takes a Herculean effort.
Oh yeah, for sure, and you also got to remember in 2008, I want to say, Rivers played on a torn ACL, and I don't think most quarterbacks, and this is no offense to most quarterbacks, but I don't think a whole lot of quarterbacks would have had the guts to do that. Like Rivers was able to do so, and it made
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, it made me appreciate Rivers a whole lot more. So I think for me, once again, and that just goes to show that the Chargers needed a better offensive line, and they got to get one with Justin Herbert at the helm. Otherwise, he's going to have the same problems as Rivers did. So that's kind of my little thing. But going back to the Super Bowl, outside of the game, there was the halftime show, which featured Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, etc. So what can you tell me about the halftime performance, and what did you like or dislike about the halftime performance?
I don't know. It's hard. I mean, the short answer is it was great. I mean, it wasn't the best. Like a lot of people have been saying, including the greatest of all time, including LeBron James. Sorry, LeBron. I think you need to go back and watch Prince's halftime performance. But I posted this on Facebook. It was definitely one of the better ones in recent memory because before Jay-Z came in and and Roger Goodell hired him as like the guru for the Super Bowl halftime show. They put a lot of like odd acts to be in the Super Bowl halftime show, and it just didn't work out. I mean, Coldplay, Maroon 5. I mean, Katy Perry. I mean, come on. I mean, nothing against those artists, and those bands. They're great at what they do, but you got to realize, most of the the biggest demographic, watching the Super Bowl, and I know it seems like everybody watches the Super Bowl, but it's not just people watching for commercials. I mean, the vast majority of people watching the Super Bowl are dedicated or even casual football fans, sports fans, and music lovers that are between the ages of 25 and 54. So I think they got it right as far as the performers. I mean, Dre, Eminem, who's still killing it and is about to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a topic for another day, but yeah, he's definitely a lock. Eminem is, Mary J. Blige. I mean, it's been a minute. It's been a hot minute since she's really had any hits in the mainstream. But she's still a very influential artist, and of course the big Snoop Dogg. I mean, come on, you can't have you can't have an LA event without Snoop Dogg, performing. I mean, he reps LA harder, even more so than Dr. Dre, in my opinion. He's just one of the greatest entertainers, we've ever had. So I thought Snoop and Dre did their thing, including with that tribute to Tupac when he played the opening riff to "I Ain't Mad at Ya," which is actually sampled by a DeBar song. And I just recently learned Eminem. He was okay. I mean, I could have done without the lip syncing. 50 Cent, I could have done without altogether. I mean, it was cool to see him, but I mean, he looked like he kind of put on some weight. There were memes going around saying that it looked like inflation. It looks like inflation had gone to 50 Cent. I thought that was kind of funny. And I think he lip synced too. So, you got, for a live, for a live entertainment show in Los Angeles, to me, you have to bring it live. Mary J. Blige, I think she lip synced to her first song, "Family Affair," but when she went into "No More Drama," her other hit single from that album, the title track actually, she really brought it, and she just killed it. She's one of my all-time favorite singers and performers, and she always brings it when it comes to her performances. Look for her at the All-Star game too. I think she's doing halftime or pregame festivities, something like that. She'll be performing at the halftime show. I mean, the All-Star game rather.
Yeah, and that's definitely, and I appreciate you giving your opinion on that. I thought that's a great opinion and great thing overall. So I thought the halftime performance was great as all. I wouldn't call it the best of all time because you basically have to compare and contrast certain other performances, and it's basically like choosing your favorite.
I don't think it's even in the top 5, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest.
Maybe top 10.
Yeah, probably top 10. And I would have to go back and look at some of the past halftime performances. I could already assure you that it's better than the last year's one, where it was just basically The Weeknd basically walking through a hall of mirrors and becoming a meme. So I think
that was kind of weird.
We actually have
The Weeknd was pretty boring.
Yeah, we actually have someone in the chat room, Gina G, or Gina Reppin de Bay. She hosts our Northern California sports show. She says Prince was the best ever, and I think she hit the.
Oh yeah, without question.
Yes,
you're absolutely right about that. You got to go back. If we're going to talk about past Super Bowl performances, to go back and revisit, that's the first one to go to. I mean, he was basically a god in that halftime show. Also, go back and look at the U2 one after 9/11, which was I believe Patriots versus Rams, what else? Paul McCartney had some good ones. Michael Jackson back in '93.
You'd really have to go back and look at
Beyonce. What about Bruno Mars?
Beyonce
and Bruno Mars had some good performances about almost a decade ago. Yeah, I definitely put them ahead of this year's.
I think Super Bowl 54's halftime performance was pretty good with Shakira and J-Lo. I obviously, once again, you'd have to compare it to like the others.
I mean that was pretty good. I'm not sure if it was better than this year's. It's close. They're pretty neck and neck.
But again, I think this year and J-Lo and Shakira's was so much better than last year's with The Weeknd.
Oh, yeah.
Better than The Weeknd. And then Gina also says Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, LOL.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're talking about that one.
Yep.
I was thinking of the Justin Timberlake back in 2013, like 2013, 2014 when he put out his third record. He was good. Yeah. I definitely put that one ahead of this year's and that Shakira and J-Lo show. But I mean, unfortunately, that Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake thing was kind of ruined by Nipplegate, if you will.
Yep, the wardrobe malfunction.
I'm not so sure it was a malfunction. I think that was, this is just my opinion, I think that was kind of part of the act.
But
there's a good Lifetime documentary on Janet Jackson that just came out recently, and they kind of talked about that. And they talked about just how Janet Jackson was basically just scorned and like almost canceled. If you want to talk about cancel culture, because of that stunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that pretty much ended her career almost.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal, if you ask me.
She hasn't really been relevant since then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just some of those unfortunate events that happened. And it's just sad and unfortunate. But either way, stuff happens. So I think...
Yeah.
I definitely think we've had a lot of memorable halftime performances, and I can't wait for next year's back in Arizona. So we'll see. You have anything else you want to say?
Hopefully.
So go ahead.
Hopefully the Rams will be back in the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, we'll see. I actually, before we wrap up the Super Bowl, I actually do need to go over the Rams' opponents for next season. So, starting with the away teams, other than Arizona, the Niners, and the Seahawks.
Do we already have the schedules out?
Yeah, the schedule's released. It's been released.
Oh wow! I didn't know they came out this early.
Well, not the official schedule, but the opponents are set, but not the official times, dates, and whatnot. So that's not going to be released until maybe around August or July or maybe even May. I think it's May.
Well, no, it has to be way earlier than July because August is when the preseason starts. So doesn't that usually come out around when the draft happens?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, yeah, that is correct. So as for the Rams' opponents for next season, other than Kansas City, or not Kansas City, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and the Niners, their away games will feature the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Kansas City Chiefs, the New Orleans Saints, the Green Bay Packers, and last but certainly not least in terms of away games, the Los Angeles Chargers. But can we really describe that as an away game?
Well, is it a rivalry?
Well, remember, the Chargers and the Rams share the same stadium, so it's theoretically...
Yeah, that's it. Well, the Clippers and the Lakers weren't a rivalry right away. At least not until they got Chris Paul and they started getting good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I just think it's pretty funny that this game is going to be an away game for the Rams, but after winning the Super Bowl, the Rams are basically going to be Big Brother, and they're probably going to have more Rams fans, disappointingly, even though Justin Herbert has brought the Chargers to popularity, and they've brought revenue over there. So
the Chargers are barely, are almost never a home team, even in their home stadium.
Unfortunately, yeah. They have had better showings though. Like against the Bengals this season, it was actually, from what I heard, 60-40 in favor of Bengals fans, which actually isn't bad considering you got to travel all the way up east to attend that game. So
you're talking about the Super Bowl.
Well, no. The Chargers and the Bengals played one another in a regular season game. Yeah, that was back in Cincinnati.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so before we go over the home games for the Rams, we got to say hello to Mike Pat in the chat room. He says, "Good evening, sir. Thank you for tuning in." So as for the Rams...
His name is Mike Patton, as in Patton?
No, just Pat. P-A-T-T.
Oh, Mike Pat. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said Patton. There's one of my all-time favorite bands, Faith No More. That's the lead singer's name, Mike Patton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he hosts our DMV sports show, Let's Whine About DMV Sports, and he actually has a twist to that show. He basically does the show with a glass of wine, and he basically talks about all the finest wines in the entire world, and he definitely is a great show, and he basically talks about the DMV sports, the Maryland, the Virginia, and Delaware sports, so definitely do check that out.
Mom would enjoy that, at least for the wine.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm kind of interested on it as well. So, and he's also a Washington Commanders football team. We now can call them the Commanders and not the Washington football team. So, and he says, "My Commanders are always road teams." LOL. Yeah. So, all right. So now let's jump on into the Rams' home games. So the Rams' home games will feature the Atlanta Falcons, the Buffalo Bills, the Carolina Panthers, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Dallas Cowboys, obviously the Seattle Seahawks, the Arizona Cardinals, and the San Francisco 49ers, and the Denver Broncos. So that's basically the Rams' opponents finalized. They're playing the AFC West, which I think is going to be fun, and they're also playing the NFC South, which I think the NFC South is going to take a huge step back because obviously with Tom Brady retiring, you wonder who the Bucs are going to get at quarterback. They have Kyle Trask as their backup QB as of right now, but you never know with free agency. And then Jameis Winston is a free agent for the Saints this year. And then Matt Ryan, we don't know his future. And then the Carolina Panthers are basically just a train wreck, as they have Sam Darnold and possibly they're probably not going to bring back Cam Newton just because Matt Rule just doesn't.
Well, and going back to the Bucs, the reason why one of the reasons why Tom Brady retired is because he knew that the Bucs weren't going to be able to go anywhere. They have an aging roster, and they have a lot of cap space tied up to with so many players that I don't even think they're going to be able to do much in the draft. The Bucs have just been heavily decimated. At least due to injury and age, and of course with Tom Brady retiring, I think I'm surprised that the Rams, got such an easy schedule. It may get easier if Aaron Rodgers decides to either hang it up or leave the Packers and go to a different team.
Mm-hmm. For having a first place schedule, it's rather a little light, and Mike says that the NFC South is going to be trash this upcoming year, and he also says that Atlanta and New Orleans have horrible cap situations, the Panthers are a mess, and the Bucs are tight as well, and they also have to address on whether they're going to keep Chris Godwin or not. So,
yeah.
Other than the Cowboys and maybe the Chiefs and the Niners and the Bills.
The Niners are a question mark too, because we don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be like.
Yeah, obviously they have Trey Lance, but
they have they have a lot of really good offensive linemen and maybe the best run game in football, but you still need a quarterback to help direct traffic.
And they have a very good tight end in George Kittle, and they definitely have the Swiss Army knife in Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously losing Raheem Mostert was rough as well for the Niners, but you never know what could happen next season. Like, it's still going to be fun times once the NFL season begins. And once again, 26 days until free agency starts, and then that's basically going to answer a whole lot of questions for next year. And from what I heard is that Aaron Donald, obviously he's contemplating retirement just because he's played quite a bit, even though he's only been in the league for 8 seasons. But honestly, from what I heard, he said that if the whole Rams team comes back next year, then he's back. So I'd be interested to see what happens with him. Obviously, Whitworth is going to retire, and it's obviously going to... They're going to have to rebuild their O-line, but we'll see.
Well. Hopefully Beckham comes back.
Yeah, but it's going to be a long road to recovery. Like, you're probably looking him back at about like October, because remember I think he tore his ACL or MCL or whatnot. Yeah, so it's a long road to recovery, and you still have to get you still have Robert Woods that's still on the roster, and Van Jefferson is still on the roster as well, and how they're going to have to feed 4 mouths with the ball. So we'll see. But do you have anything else you want to add on the Rams before we move on and talk about our Lakers?
No, not one bit. We're way over. We need to get into the Lakers.
Yeah, I will say this about the Rams winning. I think for everyone saying that the Rams are in trouble or the Chargers have a brighter future than the Rams, well, obviously the Chargers have a bright future ahead of them, but now they're going to be set back a whole lot more in terms of popularity in Los Angeles. Like, they can't even get more... There are even more Raiders fans in Los Angeles than there are Chargers fans. So the Chargers, in terms of popularity, are going to have their work cut out for them. But I think they're going to have to make it work somehow, some way, and they're going to need to come up big in free agency because 11 draft picks, 4th highest cap space, they have to hit a home run when it comes to this offseason. Otherwise, they're going to be in this never-ending cycle of mediocrity and living in the shadow of the Rams. So there's that. But jumping on over to the NBA, the Lakers, remember when I said they hit a rough patch in my little intro? Adam and Andrew kind of made fun of that a little bit. Adam said the Lakers are in a rough patch. Understatement of the week. And then Andrew says, I
completely agree with that. That's the understatement of the year, the season. I mean, the Lakers are just a hot mess. But go ahead.
And then Andrew says that the Lakers are worse than a rough patch. And yeah, it's definitely been rough times for the Lakers. They just lost Anthony Davis, who is out for 4 weeks, which is like, oh my gosh. Like, I feel for the poor guy. And ever since the bubble, he hasn't really been able to become 100%. And it's tough for a big man like him, considering he's had injury history. And then you also have LeBron, who's still been battling injury after injury, and then Westbrook is still battling injury after injury. So the Lakers were lucky to scrap together a win over the Jazz this past week, as they were able to win despite trailing throughout most of the game. And it was quite the miracle, despite losing Anthony Davis. So at the moment, so far for the Lakers, they currently are a whopping 27-31, which is not good. They're currently 9th in the Western Conference behind the Clippers, who are 30-31. So what can you say about this Lakers season and how it's just been frustrating, to say the least?
Well, God, where do I even begin? I mean, there is no way in hell I thought at this point of the season the Lakers would be 9th in the Western Conference, and I mean, my computer went to sleep here. I don't even remember how many games they are. Out of falling out of the playoffs altogether.
They're
including the play-in tournament.
They're 4.5 games out of the play, or in the playoff or play-in game. San Antonio is basically 2 games behind the Trailblazers and 4.5 games behind the Lakers.
Yeah, 4.5 games. And they're just 2.5 away from falling to 10. And you think about that. I mean, if the season ended today, the Lakers would be hosting the Portland Trailblazers in a win-or-go-home game. And even if they were lucky enough to win that game, they would have to play the loser of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the LA Clippers game on the road. Well, I mean, if they're playing the Clippers, like we talked about with the Rams and the Chargers, it's not really a home game. But I mean, it's not really a road game. But even so, I mean, it's crazy that they're in this situation. They have just had zero cohesion whatsoever. And a lot of it does have to do with injuries and guys being in and out of the lineup. But I mean, outside of LeBron, I mean, this has just been a very disappointing team, especially Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis is greatly underachieved. Since getting hurt last year, and Russell Westbrook has just been a disaster. I mean, it just looks like he's gotten so old. He's having trouble finishing at the rim. He's worse in every aspect of shooting, including free throws, than he's ever been. The Lakers, as a team, are 29th in free throw shooting. Free throws have been absolutely killing him, especially late in games. I mean, think about how much. I mean, where would the Lakers be if they had hit all their free throws in clutch time? I mean, they would be, possibly competing at least for the 6th seed. And even free throws, like with LeBron missing 2 out of 3 free throws against Golden State, has really killed him. Even in the game, even in that overtime game when against the Knicks a couple weeks ago, they shouldn't have needed overtime, but they did go into overtime because the Lakers missed 4 out of 5 free throws, including some from Russell Westbrook. I believe Anthony Davis missed one too. In the final minute of regulation, and the Knicks were able to tie it with a 3 and send it to overtime. Again, the Lakers are 29th in free throw shooting, second to last in the league. Get a load of this. I heard that in the previous 12 to 13 games, the Lakers as a team have shot 59% from the free throw line. That is just abysmal. I mean, a team that has LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook and Carmelo Anthony shooting 59% from the free throw line? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's just been really, this whole season has been really difficult to sit through. And, I can't even believe, sometimes I can't even believe I even bother turning on the television. Mm-hmm. And now with these latest injury news, with Anthony Davis, going down for at least 4 weeks, it'll probably end up being 6 weeks, like 6 or 7 weeks, like Shaq said, which means we're lucky if we get him in time for the playoffs. If assuming the Lakers hold on and get there, and even LeBron said earlier this week, that knee is still bothering him. It's not killing him, but it's it's bothering him. He said in an interview, my knee is not 100%. I don't think it'll ever be 100%. Those are LeBron's own words, and he's been saying this for almost a year. Ever since he fell and busted his. I thought, wasn't it his ankle that he hurt last year?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that's still having lingering effects, and that knee's been bothering him too. I mean, I guess they're separate injuries, but still, I mean, even though LeBron has had a terrific season, one of the best in his career, if you could believe that, he's still 37 years of age. At some point injuries just end up staying with you as you get older. It's just, it's just the facts of human life, and it just comes with age. And again, I don't even know if they get out of the play-in tournament. I think the Lakers will make the play-in tournament, even if they fall even if what's his name, Damian Lillard comes back and they surpass the Lakers. I still think they at least make it as a 10 seed. But if Damian Lillard comes back and Portland hosts the Lakers in a play-in game, I'm not confident the Lakers win that one, because they have had a horrendous history of playing in Portland.
Yeah, it's been rather just sickening to see the Lakers this season. I understand they have a lot of, it's been a experiment to say the least, but honestly, I couldn't agree more with those free throws. They have been struggling from the foul line for years. I think even the bubble playoffs, they were just not the best free throw shooting team. And honestly, one of my friends actually,
they made them when they counted, though.
Yeah, but
they're not even making them when they count.
Mm-hmm. One of my friends said that the Lakers missing free throws are basically just honoring Shaq at this point. So that just goes to show that the Lakers are just atrocious at the foul line. But
I think they're worse than Shaq at this point. I mean, at least Shaq. These are his own words. He makes like 1 out of 2 every time, and he makes them when they count. Again, the Lakers aren't even making them when they count. It's been killing them. Huh?
Yeah, and it's really concerning at this point, considering the West. At this point, I don't think the Lakers or the Clippers will get out of the first round, just because you look at the Western Conference, like between Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, and Utah, and maybe Dallas, I think those are the 5 teams that I can see getting to the second round. Maybe the Nuggets if they're lucky. But if I had to basically choose who would get to the second round, I'd say the Suns because they have loads of talent, the Warriors because they have Steph and Clay back, the Grizzlies because Ja Morant has just been playing on another level, and Utah because despite that loss to the Lakers, I think they've been consistent throughout most of the season. Now, the Mavericks, on the other hand, in your neck of the woods where you live, the Mavericks to me are kind of the equivalent of Peyton Manning without the rings. They're good, they're pretty decent in the regular season, but in the postseason, they're a totally different team in the worst way. And I think that's what kind of sets me apart from the Mavericks making it to the second round. And then the Nuggets, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I think the problem with the Mavericks is that they don't really have a second star that they can rely on, besides Luka Doncic. I mean, that's why they traded Porzingis.
Yep. And then going back to the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic can't carry the team by himself, and he needs help. The poor dude it can't just be a one-man show for him, but considering he is very talented, he is practically averaging a triple-double, but honestly, he can't just do it all by himself, and that's what concerns me. Like, he's averaging 26 points per game. The next highest guy is Will Barton, who averages 15, and then there's Aaron Gordon, who averages 14.5 per game, and then so on and so forth. But for the Lakers, even if they get to the big dance, can they really hang with the Warriors or the Suns or the Grizzlies or any of that stuff? Well, if they were in the play-in game, they'd have no choice but to either play the Warriors or the Suns. So my answer to that would be a big fat NO, and it's disappointing just because I would like to see LeBron get one last hurrah. And I've been hearing that LeBron was thinking about going to, of all places, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And for those of you wondering why, and you're probably going to wonder why, Justin, it's because...
Yeah, this is news to me.
This isn't actually official rumors, but the LeBron wants to go to the Thunder just because the Thunder have a lot of draft capital and they have the potential of drafting Bronny James.
Yeah, Bronny Jr., yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to add on the Lakers before we head to a commercial break or whatnot?
A couple things real quick. I just want to go back to the standings real quick. I mean, the Lakers currently are sixth back of Denver for the sixth spot. I agree with you. If they can't get out of the play-in tournament, and it doesn't look like they're gonna with this AD injury, I don't think the Lakers have a shot in hell of catching Denver with only 24 games. With only 24 games left, I guess it's possible if they catch lightning in a bottle with a small ball lineup, but it's still a tall order. And Denver's starting to turn it around. Dallas has been on a roll lately, like you mentioned. Utah, even though they lost twice to the Lakers in LA, they're figuring things out. I agree. I think they're a first round egg unless they somehow sneak into that fifth spot. I think they're a first round exit.
Mm-hmm.
At best, assuming they get out of the play-in tournament. Another thing I want to ask you real quickly is Stephen A. Smith made NBA news when he mentioned that the Lakers should trade Anthony Davis. Now this has become it's become interesting again with this injury. Two questions. Has Anthony Davis peaked as a player, and should given his the way he's played this season and the recent injury history, and should the Lakers trade AD? Can the Lakers trade AD at this point?
Well, to answer that question you just asked, should the Lakers trade AD? Unless the Lakers are willing to get a big haul, because you look at what the Lakers traded to get him. They traded Brandon Ingram. They traded Josh Hart. They traded the number 4 pick, which eventually turned into
traded Lonzo.
Yeah, and Lonzo Ball, and they got Anthony Davis, and eventually the Lakers were fortunate to get a ring out of that. Although, albeit being in a shortened season, but it's still a ring no matter what. But
I agree. I don't buy that whole the Lakers did it in a bubble, so it diminishes their championship run. I think it took a lot of mental toughness to get and we talked about this in a year and a half ago when they won. The mental toughness it took to win that championship in a bubble. You can't. That can't be that can't be overestimated. Same with the Dodgers. But
right.
Again, we've hashed that.
Yeah, we digress. So back to it. Should the Lakers trade Anthony Davis? Unless the Lakers can get a big haul, whether it's draft picks or young, fresh talent, I don't know. I don't think any team's going to want to trade for AD. The Lakers had to trade practically half their roster to get him. So the fact that the Lakers would trade him to another team would make everyone wonder, where would he go and who would want to bargain with the Lakers at this point in terms of Anthony Davis's career. And then in terms of... Go ahead.
I I have an idea, maybe, and it's a long shot, but possibly Chicago. That's his home. That's his home city, and Chicago's got a really good team going around. I mean, again, like you said, how much would Chicago be willing to give up in order to get an Anthony Davis that's injury prone, but to pair him with Vucevic and Lonzo and what's his name, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, assuming he stays in Chicago. I mean, that's a starting five right there.
Oh yeah.
But maybe the Lakers can get a Zach LaVine in return, if they're willing to take him on, or maybe Kobe White, there's a lot of decent players, they can get in from Chicago, and they don't have to be the A-listers.
Yeah, and I'm still gonna say this like I truly mean it. The Lakers were fools for letting Alex Caruso walk. And to this day, I will never, ever, ever understand why they let Alex Caruso walk to Chicago. It was very...
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. To answer your question about has Anthony Davis peaked, I feel he did. He kind of peaked back at the bubble, even though he kept getting banged up there as well. Ever since then,
even though he's only 28 years old, 28 is usually when your peak, when NBA or athletes peak, I should say, in general starts. It's like usually 28 to 32 is the average peak for an athlete.
Yeah,
for a professional athlete.
Yeah, I feel he kind of has, but it still remains to be seen. If he could still stay healthy, or if he could try to stay healthy to the best of his ability, I feel he can rise a little bit more. But I think for now he's kind of peaked, unless he starts to get it together in terms of not being injured.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Yeah, I hope he does come back. I hope he does come back and finds a way to recapture that Anthony Davis we saw in the 2019-2020 season. But I mean, you think about it. Assuming we're right and the Lakers do go out in the first round. I mean, you look ahead. I mean, next year is going to be rough, just as rough in my opinion. Because I mean, you're unless you trade for John Wall, I mean, you're not really going to get anything for Russell Westbrook. Nobody's going to be willing to take on that $46 million contract, even though it is an expiring contract. I mean, that's a lot of money for a broken down rundown, I should say, Westbrook. And, you've got a potentially broken down Anthony Davis. We don't know what LeBron's going to be next year. I mean, it seems like we're kind of stuck with this team for a while.
Yep, and all the Lakers can do is just adapt to it. And I feel the Lakers should not fire Frank Vogel. Someone did mention this in the chat room.
I do.
Yeah, someone mentioned this in the chat room a couple weeks ago. Firing Frank Vogel does not make the Lakers better. And I definitely agree with that sentence, just because, well...
But here,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your thought first, and then I'll rebut.
Because it's not Frank Vogel's fault that the Lakers are not good. They have a lot of injured players. Their players are pretty old, if you ask me. They're not the defensive team that they were back a couple seasons ago. And they're facing a whole lot of other talented teams like the Warriors, the Clippers, even without Kawhi and Paul George, the Mavericks, the Suns, and then you have the East, which is ruled by the Bucks, and the Cavs have kind of been the surprise team, and the list goes on and on. So I think with everyone having a little bit more youth and the Lakers just being old, it just doesn't really, it's not a recipe for success for the Lakers.
You see, I get your points. I mean, I agree that Frank Vogel has had to juggle a lot of lineups, not just this season, but last year too. These last 2 seasons have been rough with injuries, and him having to juggle 50 different lineups. But still, I mean, if the Lakers, if the Lakers end up falling out of the play-in tournament, even with all these injuries, I mean, you still have had at least one of these all-stars for the entirety of your season to not even make the top 10 in the Western Conference, to not even be able to beat Minnesota or the Clippers, to not finish ahead of Minnesota or the Clippers, without Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, and not even win a play-in game. I mean, that to me is just, with Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James, for the most part of your season, at least one of those players to not be able to finish in the top 10 or get out of one game in the play-in tournament, that to me is just unacceptable. You got to send a message if you're the organization. That's unacceptable.
And the Lakers as a whole, Rob Pelinka's got to do his part to get better players, and obviously the Lakers need 5 more Malik. I think Rob Pelinka really did a disservice to Laker Nation by trading for Russell Westbrook, and like you mentioned earlier, letting Alex Caruso walk and go to the Bulls, and not landing DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry, especially when DeMar DeRozan wanted to go to the Lakers. I mean, they could have had him, but instead you traded so many assets, let several several really good players, and let Alex Caruso walk. I mean, they lost Kyle Kuzma. They traded Kyle Kuzma to get Russell Westbrook, and he hasn't worked out for them. And he gutted the roster to get an aging Russell Westbrook that just hasn't worked out. So yeah, Rob Pelinka, I think, deserves the majority of the blame for the way this season's turned out, unfortunately. Yeah, and it's quite the shame, just because this was the guy that brought together that Lakers roster that won the championship back in 2020. But I think, for me, could he be on the hot seat?
Could Rob Pelinka be on the hot seat?
Yeah, could Rob Pelinka be on the hot seat? I think he should be on the hot seat more so than Frank Vogel.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's disappointing, and it's just a rough time for Lakers fans altogether. But for me, I think we're just going to have to roll with the punches. We got to play the hand we're dealt and try to make lemonade out of this not-so-good lemon. So we'll see what happens. But you have any other thoughts to about the Lakers before we head to a commercial break?
No, I think that's it. I'm watching the NBA Rising Stars Challenge, and perfect timing, because big game James Worthy has just made an appearance on television. I guess he's coaching one of the Rising Stars teams, and Isaiah Thomas is coaching the other team. So that sort of brings back a lot of memories from the late '80s.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those were the good old days.
It's a close game, too. It's 49-48 in favor of Team Worthy.
Nice. Good stuff right there. And I think it's going to be a fun All-Star weekend, and I can't wait to watch some of it. So that's going to do it for the NBA portion of the show. Let's take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'll be briefly recapping USC UCLA in men's hoops, and going over some other Southern California sports action. We still have the Dum Dum of the Week award to go over, so you're listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia Sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
That's right, everybody. Definitely do check out Philly Sports Talk along with Fast Break, Chi-Town Weekly, and The Show That Never Sleeps. They're all amazing shows dedicated to their respectful topics. We are back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Big shout out to my brother Teran Rodriguez for tuning in, or for being a part of the show, mind you. And we knocked out pretty much nearly 100 minutes worth of Lakers and Rams talk. So I'm just going to go briefly over what else has happened in Southern California. Then we'll jump to the Dum Dum of the Week award. Then I'll send you all on your way because we got to get some dinner. So I got to give myself a mini Dum Dum of the Week award just because I forgot to talk about the Busch Clash at the Colisseum. But I did have a lot to go over when it came to the Rams and whatnot, so I give myself a mini Dum Dum of the Week award. But regardless, the Busch Clash happened a couple weeks ago, and Joey Logano won. It wasn't an official race. It was kind of like a preseason race. It was kind of like a dress rehearsal, if you want to say. And Joey Logano, once again, won the Busch Clash, which was some good stuff. And the Daytona 500 is vastly approaching. It's about 100 or so days away. The NASCAR season's actually gotten fully underway as they have preliminary rounds this weekend and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much your little NASCAR bit right there. For those of you that are NASCAR fans and you want to check out more NASCAR or rate auto sports, definitely check out the Extra Mile every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Dale Kinsey Jr., Michael Ward, and Christopher Lehman. They do a great job of talking motorsports and all things auto sports. It really is an amazing bit. It's an amazing show. It's basically one of the longest running shows in iSports Radio. So definitely do check that out. Jumping over to college basketball, USC was able to defeat UCLA last week despite not having Isaiah Mobley. Now, this kind of screams impressive win for USC just because I feel they weren't really worthy of an NCAA tournament spot. I think they were kind of borderline, especially if they didn't do all that great in the Pac-12 tournament. But with this win over UCLA, I think it's an impressive win, and I think that should give him more than enough leeway to making them a NCAA tournament team. Now, USC has a little ways to go, and last night they were able to defeat Washington by 10, and they also beat UCLA by 3 last Saturday. So I think USC still has a lot of work to do, but I think for me, USC is on the up and up, and I've been real impressed with them, and I feel that the Trojans can get the job done in the Pac-12. They're certainly not where they want to be, but they're starting to climb the ladder. I don't think any team is going to be catching Arizona in the Pac-12 standings. So, I mean, for USC, it could be a whole lot worse. I think they could beat Oregon, which just lost to Arizona State, and they play Arizona tomorrow. So I think that's going to be something to watch for if you're a Pac-12 fan. So there's that right there. Continuing on with college basketball, Long Beach State's men's basketball team has, I want to say they have their top 5 in terms of winning streaks. Currently, they have the 5th most active or longest winning streak in terms of NCAA men's basketball, as they have now won 11 in a row. Last night, they defeated Cal State Northridge by a good chunk. I don't have the exact score on me, but honestly, it's been really impressive that Long Beach State has put together this 11 straight wins. And I think for all the Dan Monson haters out there, they're starting to eat a whole lot of crow just because Long Beach State has put together this impressive streak. They're 2 games ahead of the second place team in the Big West Conference. And honestly, I think it's going to be fun times to see this Long Beach State team continue. I'm not giving them praise just because they're my alma mater. I'm giving them praise because it's been a while. It's been a quick minute since we last seen Long Beach State have success under the watchful eye of Dan Monson, who just got an extension. So I think for me, it speaks to high volumes of how Long Beach State's preseason games have prepared them. Obviously, the losses to UCLA were tough, and then losing to USC when they were in that game for the most part also stung a little. But I think with the Big West Conference being a revolving door in terms of being shifted around between UC Irvine and UC Santa Barbara and a few other schools, I think it's rather impressive. But they still have to keep it up, and they have to go on the road and pull out some wins. And one of those games that they're going to be playing is against UC Irvine, and that's going to be the million-dollar question. Can the Beach take down the Anteaters at the Bren? We'll see. That still remains to be seen, honestly. So there's that right there. Jumping over to the NHL, we have the Anaheim Ducks and the LA Kings back at it. The Kings are still doing fine, but the Ducks are really struggling. The Ducks have now lost 4 in a row, and they have fallen out of the top 5 in the Pacific Division, as they just lost to the Edmonton Oilers, and this past week they just lost to the Calgary Flames. That Flames loss was a big-time loss, just because that could have actually jumped them further ahead into the standings, but now they've lost 4 in a row, and this kind of makes me wonder, are the Ducks heading for a spiral downward? Or a downward spiral? I hope not. I really want to see the Ducks make the postseason. Same with the Kings. They're currently 4th in the Pacific Division, but if they keep losing as well, then they're going to be going down the same path as the Ducks are. So the Anaheim Ducks that really have to get their you-know-what together, and if they don't, then I'm gonna lose it. Let's just say I'm going to have an LA Galaxy type of rant on the Ducks. And it's not going to be a pretty rant. So that's basically my little skim through in terms of the NHL. Definitely do check out the Neutral Zone every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern with Adam Karnick and Zach Puplis. So they do a great job of talking about at the NHL. They even talk a little college hockey, and it's rather entertaining with those two. They have a lot of great cohesion and whatnot. Alright, now it is time for the Dum Dum of the Week awards. Yes, I said awards because we have a lot of awards to give out. The Dum Dum of the Week award recognizes people who do dumb things or organizations that do dumb things, and anyone can get this award. No person or organization is safe from this award. My neighbor's dog could get it, a crow that poops on me can get it, anybody can get it. And we actually have 3 to give out, but we have an honorable mention. Now, for those of you that are eating, I'm going to give you all a 10-second warning about this. Alright, 10 seconds is up. So, for those of you that were eating, I hope you're not eating anymore just because this honorable mention of Dum Dum of the Week may kind of gross you out. So, at work, a lot of things happen on my end. Some things are rather interesting, to say the least, but one thing that did kind of weird me out, and I don't know if this is actually natural or not, was that one of my coworkers decided to brush their teeth in the break room while people were in it. Now, again, it's a break room, and I don't know if there were people actually eating or if they were on their phones, but regardless, you don't brush your teeth in public. You go into a bathroom and do that. Go into the employee restroom. Go into a public restroom and just hide your toiletries. You don't brush your teeth in a break room where people are eating. It's disgusting. I'm a nice guy, and I'm not going to basically give this person the actual Dum Dum of the Week award, but come on. Think! Anyway, now for the actual Dum Dum of the Week awards. So we'll start with the first one. So, I was talking a little about USC defeating Washington. They won by 10. And to everyone's dismay, USC was an 11.5-point favorite, and that meant that people that took the minus 11.5 points for USC basically were screwed out in their parlay. Well, everyone and their moms on Twitter basically lost their you-know-what when it came to seeing that USC did not cover the spread or whatnot. Let me just tell you all this. I do not care about your stupid parlay. You shouldn't have bet. That's why they call it gambling. That's why you don't take that risk. Especially when it's USC. This is the same USC that lost to Stanford twice. And you're betting minus 11.5 against a Washington team that's actually pretty decent. This isn't last year. You were the people that put that money on USC. You took that risk. I do not want to see any more people complaining or saying, "Oh, USC, you didn't cover. You guys are trash." No. I'm sick and tired of this slander. Like, you were the ones that made that decision. You knew the consequences of picking USC minus 11.5. You knew that Washington was actually decent. They weren't like last year. And now you know what you should not have done. So, for you people on Twitter, or for you people that bet USC minus 11.5 in your parlay, you are this week's Dumb Dumb of the Week Award recipient number 1.
That's so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that's just Dumb Dumb of the Week Award recipient number 1. Dumb Dumb of the Week Award recipient number 2 happens to go to someone or people outside of the Super Bowl. So, obviously, the Rams won the Super Bowl, and they decided to have a parade. Right? Right. Unfortunately, they didn't invite the Lakers and the Dodgers. They didn't have, like, a joint parade, which would have been awesome. So, yeah. Now, an incident happened when, I guess, Matt Stafford and the Rams players were on stage. So, Matt Stafford was having the time of his life. I'm 99% certain the dude was drunk. And unfortunately, a photographer was doing a great job of getting good shots of Stafford and the players. Unfortunately, she fell down 9 feet from the stage. And Matt Stafford obviously did not help her because he was 9 more times. But I'm pretty sure he was, like, drunk and wasted. Kelly Stafford, on the other hand, decided to help her out, and I think other authorized personnel helped her out. And then, with the parade being televised on Spectrum, I think, it just cut out to the point where it wasn't, they didn't televise the lady falling. So, for me, my Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient number 2 are the stupid people that are making a huge deal about Matt Stafford not helping. I'm just going to say this. The dude was wasted. He couldn't do anything. He could have made the situation worse. Stop trying to spin lies. Stop trying to make Matt Stafford look like a bad guy. At the end of all things, Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly are paying for the medical expenses of the fractured spine of the photographer. Please stop making Matthew Stafford look like a bad person. He could not help it. It's not as if he pushed her, and he doesn't have any medical training. Like, once again, the dude was wasted, and the photographer in Stafford's defense should have been aware of her surroundings. She probably should have been aware of the situation, and she probably shouldn't have been near the ledge. However, the accident in general is not Stafford's fault. It's basically no one's fault. It was just an accident. And while she did fracture the spine, the photographer did, we need to stop blaming Matthew Stafford for what happened. It's not his fault, and the Stafford family is paying for the medical expenses. Just deal with it and move on. Stop trying to spin lies to the media. Stop trying to blow things out of proportion. I cannot believe all these people on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all over social media are still blaming Matt Stafford, saying, oh my God, Matt Stafford didn't help. Well, I like to see you try being wasted on stage and then trying your best to try to help him. And please stop trying to make Matt Stafford the bad guy as he laughed at the person. Like, again, he turned around and went away from the situation because he either didn't want to make the situation worse or he didn't want to fall 9 feet and fracture any part of his body. Regardless, I think people are still blowing this out of proportion, and I think it's unfair. And, hey, I didn't ask you to jump the gun, buddy, but honestly, for the people that are making a huge deal of what Matt Stafford didn't do or what he did, please stop. And to everyone just spinning lies to the media and just making Matt Stafford look like a bad guy, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award, number 2.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that's Dum Dum of the Week Award number 2. Now, Dum Dum of the Week Award number 3, and I'll send you all on your way, happens to go to someone that went into the Super Bowl. This actually happened in the Super Bowl. So, there was this player. Well, before that, just gotta make note of something. So, after Odell Beckham Jr. went down, Matt Stafford decided to get Van Jefferson involved by going deep into the end zone, where, unfortunately, Stafford was picked off. I forget who picked him off. I think it was, like, Jesse Bates that picked him off. But regardless, Matthew Stafford got picked off in the end zone in the second quarter, and the entire Bengals defense celebrated. Now, there was one player that also celebrated, but he wasn't active, and that was Vernon Hargreaves. Vernon Hargreaves III. Now, this guy was not active, and what this guy did was he went onto the field when he wasn't active, and he decided to celebrate with the Bengals defense. This dude, who wasn't active in the game, decided to celebrate with the Bengals defense after they registered an interception. First of all, that's basically like a fan running onto the field and celebrating. Hargreaves is basically the equivalent of a fan. He cannot be on the field with the team. Yes, he's a player, but he's not active. He shouldn't be on the field. That basically gave the Bengals their first penalty of the game, and it backed them up 10 more yards. So instead of 1st and 10 from the 20, it's 1st and 10 from the 10. Their own 10, mind you. So what he did was very foolish, and while it didn't make a big impact in the game, it could have actually helped the Bengals get closer to possibly getting a late score in that second quarter. Now, obviously, the Bengals did not get that eventual score after they got the second interception from Stafford, but still, this decision from Vernon Hargreaves was absolutely stupid. I couldn't believe that he actually did that. Obviously, he's still pretty young. He's 26 years old. But in a big game like this, penalties like that could have probably impacted the game. And who knows? What if the Bengals had gotten whistled for a safety? What if this? Regardless, it was still a dumb penalty by him, and it was a very dumb decision. And if he continues to be like that, he is going to remain inactive for a while, as Al Michaels said. So for Vernon Hargreaves III, who went onto the field and decided to celebrate with the Bengals defense, despite him being inactive, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient number 3.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. And on that note, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Without any further delay, let's get on out of here because we are approaching 2 hours of this show and I need to get me some dinner. You dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. To everyone that stuck all the way up to 2 hours, I appreciate you. I wasn't expecting to go 2 hours, but regardless, it was the Super Bowl recap episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Congratulations to the LA Rams on winning the Super Bowl, and special thank you to my brother, Teran Rodriguez, for coming on and talking some LA Rams and Los Angeles Lakers with me. I really do appreciate you. I'm glad we were able to have you back on for this episode. It really meant a lot. And while he isn't a diehard Rams fan, he was able to celebrate as he adopted the Rams as his team, and he was able to be over the moon when it came to being a Rams fan and seeing the Rams win the Super Bowl. So congrats to the Rams. And back to the listeners, if you were listening live, I appreciate you. If you were listening on the playback, I appreciate you. If you're listening at work, I appreciate you. If you're listening at all, whether it's day, night, or afternoon, I really do appreciate you all. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. All have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Take care of yourselves. Don't be dumb. I will see you Monday for Set Point. Have a great weekend, everyone. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace.